Hello, you guys. It is Stephanie from Unveiling the Spirit. And if you don't know about my videos, I like to bring a spiritual perspective to everyday issues, problems, and things like that. And of course, what is the major issue going on right now in our society is the fight for racial justice and equality. And so a lot of my videos have been about that lately, and you can approach this from so many different angles and topics. But today I want to talk about this feeling that I keep hearing repeated in these ideas that I keep hearing repeated from blacks, that what blacks have been doing so far has not worked, and it is not working. And so I want to address that because I want to point out that not only is it working, but this is exactly how it works. This is exactly how change works. And so before I get into kind of explaining what I mean by that, is that I want to acknowledge that I do understand why people say that. I'm not one of these Christians that just believes in the power of positivity and you just ignore the bad and act like it's not there. No. But you have to understand the reality of the situation to get a good grasp on how to move forward with it. And so I do understand why people say this, though, because blacks haven't been treated right since treating blacks have not been treated right in America since the beginning of this country. I mean, of course, we all know we were slaves. Then you have the Jim Crow era. There was a lynching era at one point, the civil rights era, and then even today you have black men most specifically, but black women are also murdered by the police. Sometimes we're murdered and killed by average citizens, and they are not even charged a lot of the time, or they get off on it. We are over policed. There's mass incarceration among black men, which has created a huge problem with fatherless homes, which I will get into in another video. But also, we are not really treated very fairly when it comes to the justice system, and are harshly punished and over punished a lot of the time. And so I do understand why people saying this and say things like this. And this is just the tip of the iceberg about the type of stuff you can experience by being black in America. And it is very frustrating. It does make me angry, and I understand why blacks are angry, but we can't allow our anger to make us not realize how far we've come. And that is very important. And so when I talk about how far we've come, I don't want to talk about it in the sense of that, like whites might say, white racist people might say, well, it's better than it was, so just be okay with it. No, I'm not saying it's better than it was and be okay with it. I'm saying it's better than it was, and let's keep fighting to make it better. And so, but I do want to, emphasize that things have changed, and I want to emphasize that things have changed in order to give us the hope and the passion to keep pressing this forward, because there's nothing worse than thinking that your suffering is in vain. And I want blacks to understand that, and the whites who support us, that our suffering is not in vain. During slavery times, there were many revolts that took place, and those revolts is kind of influenced the North to put pressure on the South to end slavery, because it was a very unstable practice to try to keep it functioning. And so, but if those blacks didn't do that, then we wouldn't have gotten where we are. And then you have the civil rights era, where you have blacks who picketed and fought and were attacked by dogs and water hoses and beaten and lynched, and they went through that, and those things contributed to where we are now. And so we don't want to get caught up in saying that things have not changed. Yes, they have changed, but what did it take to make those changes? It took people who were willing to stand up, willing to fight, willing to suffer, willing to die, willing to be bold and stand in the face of racism and say, we're not having this. And we still have to do that today. And so, but it's very easy for us, especially nowadays with this instant gratification society and all this technology, to take the benefits and the advantages that we have for granted. We were not the ones that came on the boats. We were not the one working for free for generations in cotton fields or whatever. We were not the ones standing on picket lines and being abused on live television in front of the police. I mean, by the police. Now, of course, you have people rioting and things now, and the police are still abusing their power in a lot of situations. But the point is that the fact that it's not acceptable to use attack dogs and water hoses on people anymore. It is progress. And so, We can't lose sight of that, because it makes all the people who suffered and died and did get bitten by those dogs and did get hit with those powerful water hoses, it makes their sacrifice in vain, when we can't even acknowledge that their sacrifice is what got us the advantages that we have today. And so another aspect of feeling that nothing has worked is that a lot of Africans were Christians. A lot of Africans that came over as slaves became Christians or were Christians. And then you have, during the civil rights era and things like that, that there were a lot of Christians also. You have those, what they call Negro spirituals. And in those songs, it's clear that a lot of Africans and blacks were calling out to God to free them from their condition. So to get to the day we are now and to say that nothing has worked, it's also saying that God never did anything, that all this time that we've been praying and crying and fighting and pushing and dying, God has just sat back on his hands and not done anything. And how can you say he didn't do anything when we're not slaves anymore? Like, we could still be slaves. I mean, I know that's like, no, we couldn't. Yes, we could. We could still be slaves. We could still be segregated. We could still not be allowed to have the type of life that we have now. We can actually get married and raise our children and go to school and own businesses and have jobs and run for offices. Is it where it should be? Absolutely not. But are we making progress? Yes. And that is the thing. Change takes time. Slavery existed in this country for about 300 years. And if you tack on the civil rights era and how we are today, that's another 100 years. If we want to dismantle a system that took 300 to 400 years to establish, it is not going to be done overnight. Change takes time. And so that doesn't mean we have to take it. That means we have to keep pushing. We can't be discouraged by the amount of time that it's taking if we understand that those who fought before us got us here. And if we keep fighting, we can get somewhere better. And so I really want you guys to understand, those who feel this way, that this is how change happens. Change is slow because people are slow to change. Racists are not going to drop their beliefs and their systems because we are protesting. They're not. And so for us to really push to break through that barrier that they are very comfortable with, that they feel totally justified in, and that it is nothing wrong with it, we have to keep pushing. And I kind of feel that after the civil rights era, blacks stopped fighting as much as we did. It's almost like we got some rights, we got some privileges, we're not as under pressure as much, and we kind of became lax instead of really pushing it further. And I can see that it's very easy to do that, because fighting for these type of things that are very natural to all of us as human beings, and fighting against evil in general, it is exhausting. It is very, very exhausting. And I understand why people would want to feel defeated and give up, but we have to keep fighting. We have to. And this is how change happens. Unfortunately, I wish it was different, but it's not. It's going to take time, but we have to keep pushing. And the amount of time that it takes is going to be dependent on how much we push, how much we fight, how much we make an uproar every time a black person is killed unjustly by the police or whoever. How are we going to keep laying down and taking it and going on with our lives? That is going to determine how long it takes. So if you look throughout history, anytime any major change was made in any society, this is how it happened. People got fed up, people unified, people strategized, people looked back on things that worked before and didn't work. Why do you think people are still doing protests? Because protests have worked in the past. That's why people resort to them out of frustration when other avenues are not working, because they do work. And so that's another thing that you have to keep in mind when you look and say that the past nothing has worked. It makes you dismiss those things that have actually worked and move the line a little bit. And I know that we want things to be moved farther and faster, But that is just not how life works in anything. Anything worth having takes time. It takes fighting. It takes suffering. And it actually builds character in you. That's why you have a lot of these civil rights guys that are just the epitome of dignity and grace, because they went through those things. They suffered through those things and they learned from those things. And so you don't want to dismiss what they have done to get where they are. And then we resort to these desperate measures because we feel like, oh, nothing has worked. And we actually make the problem worse instead of making it better. And so I do think that it's important for us to understand we have to keep fighting, and then to also pass this on to our kids, that they also have to keep fighting, because I seriously doubt this problem is going to be completely solved even within my lifetime. But I will emphasize to my kids, which I spoke about in a video that I made a little while ago, about how this movement has changed me, to start really emphasizing to my kids what it means to be Black, and their responsibility of being Black is to further the Black race and Black people in America. And so that's basically all I wanted to say. And I just want to encourage you guys a little bit to keep up the fight and not to be discouraged and feel like nothing is working. Just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not working. If you keep pushing, we will see the reward, just like we are the reward. We are living some of the rewards from those who suffered, died, and bled before us. So anyway, that's about it. And I hope you guys got something out of what I'm saying. I sometimes really hate doing these videos. I get tongue-tied for some reason, and I don't know why. And it's very, very annoying because I don't do that when I'm talking to people in real life. But it is what it is. And hopefully, as I do these videos more, I will get better at it. So anyway, if you have any comments or questions or any feedback, please feel free to message me. I really like interacting with people, especially of like minds. And so, that's about it. So you guys have a good day. And if you have any topics that you would like me to share the spiritual perspective on, please feel free to submit them to me, and also, and email me, and do that also. See that tongue-tied thing again. Anyway, have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.